Y'all ready? Cool. It was my pleasure to introduce you to Julian DeGuzman and Ian Eastwood. Make some noise. Could you give a brief introduction to yourselves, please?
Yeah, my name's Ian Eastwood. I'm 31 years old. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, more specifically Oak Park, Illinois. It's the neighborhood I grew up in. I've been dancing for 21 years, and I've been coming to Fair Play since the very first one in this room in 2011, 14 years ago, or 13 years ago.
What's up? I'm Julian. I'm 23. I'm from Jersey. I've been dancing since I was 8. This dude taught me right here. It's my mentor. But yeah, it's my second Fair Play. Happy to be here.
Let's go.
Welcome. Incredible. So Ian, you were part of the very first Fair Play, right?
Correct.
So what's it like being from the very first one to seeing to where Fair Play is at today? What's that journey like?
No, this is so cool. As soon as I walked in the room, I just got like a whole bunch of nostalgia because this is the very first room that the camp was held in. And we were just talking about how at the time, anything that was like branded in terms of a camp, whether it be posters or flyers or t-shirts or anything like that, that was still new to the dance community altogether. You know, people were used to buying big commercial product, but having specific product or designs or basically assets that are involved in a camp, a sign like that would be a big deal 10 years ago. Just seeing something like that that was specific to the camp that you were attending. So I remember the very first time that we came here and Carol had customized the Fair Play Dance Camp logo and put it on a decal on the ground. And we thought we were famous. We were just like, we're famous, dude. We can dance on a logo on the ground. Like, that's crazy. And from the very first one, Carol had the decal on the ground, the logos, the banners. We walked out of here with like Letterman jackets. There was baseball cards with our design and our face on them. And for us in real time, that was like a big marker of just feeling like we had kind of made it, or just that we were special, at least in the dance community. And it was a really big deal and a huge stepping stone in all of our careers that got the opportunity to come here. So to see that from then to now is so crazy, to see how many students are in a room and at the camp in general, enjoying it all these years later, because there's been a lot of dance camps that have come and gone during that time. And it's very, very difficult to organize these events and keep them going. So, you know, shouts out to, you know, Carol, the whole team, Monica, and everybody are lucky to be here. Yeah.
Did you, as a 16-year-old dancer, ever see yourself becoming the traveling teacher that you are of the today?
That's a good question, yeah. So my original goal, I started dancing when I was 10, and my original goal was to move to LA and become a choreographer like some of my idols at the time, Marty Kudelka most specifically. And I really wanted to choreograph for big artists and do big industry work. And that was my main goal from the moment I turned 10 until like around 18, when I had the opportunity to move to Los Angeles. But the thing was that along the way, YouTube started. YouTube started in 2005. Most of you guys, some of you guys are probably not born yet, which is crazy for me to say.
And out of curiosity, hands up, who wasn't born in 2005? Who was born later than 2005?
Insanity.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. Getting old.
Oh,
and basically, I was 12 or 11 when YouTube came out, and then I started my account. So YouTube started 2005, and I made my YouTube account in February of 2006. So I was probably very early on, I'm sure within the first maybe million users, maybe even less, maybe 100,000 users or something on YouTube, period. So I was teaching myself how to upload video. Damn, that sounds ancient, bro. I was originally uploading videos of myself from actual video cassettes from film onto the computer onto YouTube and teaching myself how to do this when I was 12. And basically along the way from between 12 years old and 18 years old when I had the opportunity to move to LA, this whole thing that is these like dance camps for choreographers that can have a reputation online that isn't necessarily reflected in their commercial work or opportunities was a whole new concept and idea basically altogether. And I was very fortunate and lucky to be at the crossroads of technology and the opportunity that was coming from that technology and dance and the community and a few wild factors all kind of boiling up to this kind of perfect moment. And by the time I got to around 16, my dad, like the internet altogether was so new basically that my dad was so worried about like online sexual predators that he was like monitoring my accounts very closely to make sure I was basically safe on the internet. And my dad actually started to see the statistics of YouTube because YouTube started to create more analytics that the users could see who were uploading the videos. And so my dad started to point out to me, oh, hey, you know, people are watching people are watching your video in Italy, people are watching your video, you know, in Asia, people are like, and I was like, oh, that's cool, Dad. Like, you know, wow, that's awesome, you know, and I don't know. I just wanted to be a professional choreographer and move to LA, and really all I cared about was like people like Nick DeMora, Tucker Barkley, my idols and soon-to-be peers, but really my idols at the time. All I cared about was them seeing my videos. And so I would MySpace message them like, hey, big bro, can you check out my new choreo? On like Left Me Red, you know. So I felt like I wasn't getting the results that I wanted from uploading videos. And then one day my dad, at the time you could see that, you could see where your link had been reposted or embedded, so to speak, on other websites, which was also a thing at the time. And there was a website called Boogie Zone that was very, very, very important to dance and internet dance at the time. And Boogie Zone was like a forum, basically, where all the dance community would gather, and there were topics of classes, battles, seminars, whatever. It was just a forum for the community. And someone had actually made a thread of my videos on the forum, and that's how I actually started linking with other people like Twitch and other dancers that were early online dancers at the time. And my dad said, hey, you know, you're getting a lot of these hits and views from this website called Boogie Zone. And then that basically linked me into the bigger online dance community to where I started to see other choreographers like Sean Evaristo, Jun Kamato, Keone Madrid, all these other choreographers, because I discovered this website that my videos were posted on. And so that really got me into the online dance community and kind of what was called at the time the collegiate dance scene, because most of these teams were coming from college dance teams. So Cabo Modern was a college dance team. A lot of these other crews were college dance teams. And basically between 16 and 18 years old, I got really in tune with a whole community that wasn't really interested in the industry. Sure, they might have like wanted to have goals to aim towards the industry, but they were also like satisfied to like do their own work and curate their own kind of sub-style of choreography. And so this whole thing, long story long, this whole thing really was coming together underneath my feet while I had something else in mind. And so it was something I didn't expect. And so by the time I'm able to like teach amazing talent and amazing, you know, next gen kids like Jules, it had evolved into something that people wanted to do specifically, which it wasn't for us at the time. It was basically a means to an end. It was a way to get our voice out there, a way to pay the bills, a way to get recognition for our work when it wasn't getting recognition in other places. So to see what's happened with the dance community, with dance camps, and see that it can actually be an entire career path and lifestyle for people in pretty short order, really in one generation's time, is like an amazing gift to have been a part of, and then also witness for Jules and the generations after him. So, yeah.
So, Julian, taking it back to young Julian, about to take Eni to Eastwood's class for the first time. What goes on in your head, and does that make you like want to pursue a similar career path in the teaching, or how does that play out?
Yeah, so like I think it was the first time at this convention called the Pulse, and
Pause. Who knows what the Pulse
the
is?
Pulse on tour.
That's terrifying.
One person. But yeah, I would take all the classes, and yeah, I love to dance, obviously. But when I would take Ian's class, it was just like, this is my jam. Like, I like the song, like I like the style, and like the way he would explain it was different than like how a normal teacher would explain it, because there was like intention, and things were specifically like to the music, and that was something that I was like, oh shoot, like. And then I started like just taking his class more, and like I think I was like 13 or 14, but we actually met on like ABDC like when I was a kid.
Yeah, you were maybe 9.
I was 9 years old, but yeah, and then I just started training.
Wait, you were on ABDC?
Well, cause I was in Iconic Boys, but not in like the crew, but like I got like added when they went on like the next season for his season.
Crazy.
They did a guest performance.
Yeah.
Crazy. Okay.
But I was like 9, and that was like my first time in LA.
Oh shoot.
Yeah.
Great. Y'all know ABDC, right? America's Best Dance Crew? No? Hands up if you know it. Guys, America's Best Dance Crew, like back in the day, was the jam. Like even for Europeans, we're all just following it. We were like a year later when it hit us, so we were just like trying to keep up. But crazy. So iconic. Okay, continue on.
But yeah, something that like really was like cool to me seeing was just like all the videos from Ian and like him teaching and traveling. So I was like, damn, like I want to do that one day, you know. So I just kept, you know, training with him, and you know, obviously just like learning as much as I could. So yeah, and then now.
Fast forward to today, you're now
fast
on the
forward to
lineup.
today, it's crazy.
Now we hang out.
Now we hang out. Yeah, it's funny. It's just like crazy how life goes, you know? But yeah.
Shit. And then along both of your journeys, you both end up doing World of Dance, correct? Well, how was that process, like going into that, or?
So yeah, I was like 18, and it was my first time like choreographing for like a duet period, and just like on TV. So I was like pretty stressed, but I was having a good time, like, cause it was fun. But yeah, and we made it pretty far. So I was like, oh shoot, like I had no expectations, but I learned a lot. So, but yeah.
Let's go.
You managed to take your brand, so you build your whole brand called Young Lions and build that into a team eventually to take on to.
Yeah, so actually, shout out to an artist from Chicago. His name's Chance the Rapper. He had something going on at the time that I thought was really cool in the music space, where he had his name, obviously, which is his own brand, and then he had his actual band, which was called The Social Experiment. But the way he designed it was really cool, because he had planned for that the Social Experiment brand could live in association to any other member of the band, and that each member of the band could take their own kind of spotlight for a moment. So it could be not just Chance the Rapper in the Social Experiment, but it could be Donnie Trumpet in the Social Experiment, or Peter Cottontail in the Social Experiment. These are other members of the band. So I had the idea that, you know, I've been training some of these kids for maybe a decade already, some of them on the lower end of like 3 to 4 years, but some of them up to 10 years. So I decided that if I had the opportunity to go on the show, I wanted to like open that opportunity for them in the future, and also change the perception around dance teams in general, because dance teams would have this like unspoken rule that you could be a star of a dance team and people inside of the community would know that you're one of the contributing choreographers because you were always center of the pieces that you choreographed. It's just like a rule, but it wasn't like something outwardly known by the general public or non-dancers. You might just think this team is cool, but it was something that you really had to know inside the dance community, like, oh, Chris Martin is my favorite choreographer for choreo cookies, and I always love when he has a closing piece or whatever. It's something you have to kind of nerd out about. And I wanted to kind of try and break that up a bit for people who aren't used to watching dance so that they could see a team of dancers that have a front runner that is featured in the way that a band has a lead singer or whatever. So that was my original intention on the design of the name. And just so that I could just, keep that door open for any of the next gen that wants to come up through Young Lions and kind of take it for their own. It was a really cool experience. It was a hard experience in some senses because I grew up performing at World of Dance, honestly, early on as a headliner because the community was small, so that by the time that World of Dance was becoming a bigger event, I was locally like a bigger name in Chicago. So I was headlining some of these events in Chicago with our local teams when I was like 17 or something like that. And I didn't go on World of Dance NBC, the television show, until I was maybe 26 or 25, 26. And it was a little bit difficult because it was not reflective of the actual World of Dance event in any capacity. So that was a little bit difficult, yeah. And then also getting critiqued by, getting critiqued by general entertainers that are like iconic, that are not necessarily specifically just dancers, was difficult, especially at an event that I helped build up. And I'm a harsh critic in general, so and not in a judgmental way. It's just that I have like a general standard, and so for performances that I knew personally, if I was a judge on, which I've been a judge many times at World of Dance, that I would personally score higher if I saw it at an event, and then getting scores that were much lower than that from people that I didn't necessarily think had the whole, basis to give these scores on national television and get sunned in front of the whole world. It was a strange feeling for sure. But in the end, I think it was cool because, it was an extended viewership, and sometimes like the business way to look at something like that is that quite literally, if I saved my entire life, I'd never be able to afford that long of an advertisement on a television station, a network television station like NBC. It would cost millions of dollars to get that much airtime and be seen by that many people. So I took a couple, hits on the chin for it, but at the same time, it was a really cool experience, and, I got to be with the best of the best. So, yeah.
So it's safe to say you turned a difficult time into a silver lining, if you will.
Sure, yeah. And there was like a weird thing where they had said that we were going to get to keep the integrity of our pieces, like it would just be like kept. Which is a thing in television shows, is that, you prepare something and you perform, and very often they cut around it or they shorten it, and it kind of compromises the integrity of your piece. And I was very, very weary of this because it was promised to me, but I had a feeling that it would not happen. And so instead, before the show even came out, I actually took it upon myself to shoot all my pieces that I had done with my crew as full concept videos separately before the show even aired, because I had a feeling they would do me dirty, which they did. So it worked out, because when I was kind of heartbroken to see my art just like mixed and matched and cut up. I had something else to show people, and that I ended up getting more work down the road. Even though these videos didn't go viral or anything, it did give me opportunities from the way that I took the time to make sure that it was seen. Yeah.
So again, I think it's almost safe to say that what to take away from that is that, like, if you get presented an opportunity and it doesn't go accordingly to what you think it should go, still try your best to make the most of it and find your way of still displaying what you wanted to take from it. Don't let a situation determine what the outcome is. You still have so much control. Ian's been an advocate of that since the beginning. He started doing YouTube, putting his content out, which therefore made his first tour to Germany and Fair Play happen. And then even with his now commercial scene, you did your work to then work with some of the greatest artists like Zendaya, Donald Glover.
Yeah, keep in mind too, people hated YouTube at the time that I started YouTube. Hated it. I would go to the convention I teach at Monster Hip Hop now, and 10 out of 10 faculty members would be roasting YouTube all together. It'd be like, YouTube's the devil. YouTube's gonna take us down. YouTube's gonna kill us as dancers. And I was like, ooh, definitely doing YouTube.
It's definitely me.
So that just goes to show you, you know.
Yeah, and then with Young Lions, you were saying you wanted to open up that door for the dancers. What's it like now being on faculty with them? The likes of Julian being here, and then even Monyet's in the building right now. Like seeing these. Yo, Monyet's over there.
Big shout out to Monyet right now, man. This is a dancer I saw come in at 16 years old, and he's one of the most prolific industry dancers right now. Not to mention a huge icon in Chicago, running events for the community. I'm so proud of you, bro.
Go Monyet. Yeah, what's it like being like, even with you, like?
No, this is really cool. It's like a strange situation because, you know, I am getting older. I'm not old, but, you know, I'm 31 and still feel really young and still feel really privileged that I've seen at least 2 generations of dance. Prime example, Monyet and Jules. That's their 2 age generations apart. And it's just been like really cool to be able to see so many students that were so excited and hungry to be a part of something that was looked at as kind of an unpopular route, and just to really seize it for themselves and continue to make the most of it and try and push it in other ways that I might not even see in my scope, you know, and it's really inspiring. Like literally, I was just at Monyet's event a few days ago in Chicago, and Monyet, one of his first things was coming to our events that we would host in Chicago, and just being honest, when I walked in the room, I was so inspired and got chills because, you know, Monyet's been doing this for a few years, but I haven't had the chance to see him in action at his own event, and to see him just running this whole, I'm getting emotional, event with a room of like 300 dancers when maybe only 10 years ago, he was just one of the most eager students to come to class, and now he's running an event with 5 times as many choreographers and twice as many dancers, when sometimes me and my own parents that were running these events, we had a lot of moments of discouragement and feeling like maybe people weren't hungry to come anymore, and maybe it might not be worth it to do anymore. And so to see Monyet carry that torch and then amplify past that, it's inspiring. So yeah.
So once again, another advocate of like building what you want to build. Don't let anyone determine what you're going to do except yourself. Like he built this brand, Monyet did, this Reveal Camp, which is crazy, with 21 classes, right? Like stupid amount of classes in his community. And it doesn't matter what age, he was later to the game. He was later, like there's people in front of me right now that was younger when he started, but he had a passion, he pushed for it, and made it work. Simple as that. Monyet, we appreciate you.
That's right, community work, let's go. So
Ian, you're the YouTube generation. Julian, you fell more into the Instagram generation, I'd say, if you will. What's the difference you see? It's crazy, right? Yeah, I know, right? I'm good at my thing. I'm good at my job. How do you think Instagram has played out in dance now and where it's gone?
On behalf of Instagram, it's different because like back like when YouTube was popular, like I feel like I kind of like started. I moved to LA when like the class videos were popular, like when that was like the thing, where you film your class and like that was the thing to do. But I did a little bit of that, but I also like really just loved making videos, like how I grew up watching him and Brian make videos. And during COVID, I really dialed into that. And then like, I feel like Instagram was like just the outlet for that at the time. But yeah, I think it's just like, you know, right now, it's not really about like how many people see your stuff. It's just like about if you like it and you just want to share it and just keep it pushing. And also like you never know who will watch your stuff. You know, like he's gotten numerous of jobs, like just posting his videos, and like people flew me out just by seeing one video. You know.
Besides
So-
fair play, could you share something more iconic, like something iconic that's happened through Instagram and through you just posting your content, like anything that comes to you at the top of your head?
Oh shoot. Well, I got like flown out to Dubai off of like one video.
Like that's crazy. You know what I mean? You just posted a video. Was,
I was
it,
like,
was it a visual or was
yeah,
it a
it was a
visual?
visual.
Like a visual.
Yeah, I was like, wow, thank you so much. Like,
So you invested into your work, you create a visual, and therefore that lets
yeah,
you fly
I was
out
like,
to-
here I am in the sand dunes because of like, I just wanted to make a video one day.
You know what I mean? Like simple, and that wasn't the intention.
It wasn't, but it's just crazy, like, because Ian is like a perfect example of like an artist, like as a dancer, you know. Normally, like, I feel like sometimes like we get pushed to be just like behind the artist and whatever, but like making these videos and creating your own I hate the content or whatever, but like just your own style and everything is just like proof of something that like, oh, if you don't want to just be a chameleon all the time, like me, how I felt, like I'm not good at every style and everyone's choreography, but like I could make my own choreo to be good, you know, whatever. So it's like that was a good example, like growing up and still to this day, like just seeing that still, like we're still trying. Yeah, so it's crazy.
Thank you. I normally like to open up the space and see if anyone has a question for the teachers, because this is also your Q&A. Anyone got anything? You got Julian DeGuzman and Ian Eastwood right in front of you. You got nothing to ask. Come on, team. Monyet, help me out here. You got some? Nah, okay. I'm gonna wait because I want you to take advantage of this, of the fact that you are here. I know we're tired. And I said this day one. Shit. I said this day one, we're gonna get tired this week and we're gonna be mentally and physically feel it, but there's no reason to give up on yourselves already. You got 1.5 days left. That's it. So take advantage while you're here. You did not save up all your money to be here and then let that slip away. So right now we're talking about social media. We're talking about pushing yourself, pushing your own content. Where does that take you in your mind, and what question you want to ask? Monyet, I gotta, so you can record the voice.
What's up? What's up? So, obviously, with Ian, with you being more in the YouTube generation, and that previously being looked down upon, and then Julian moving into the Instagram generation, and that previously being frowned upon.
Yeah.
And now we're kind of in the TikTok generation.
Sure.
And that's kind of already been like frowned upon. Like
Sure.
where do you hope for the future of the internet in terms of like where things are going based on where you kind of thought things were going to go when you were younger and like freshly in it?
You should answer first. You should answer first.
Well, I feel like just like being kind of just honest of like what you're seeing and just, you know, because we got to be honest with ourselves sometimes. Like you see something like on TikTok, you're just like, all right, like this isn't, you know, the best. Like, so like I kind of take it upon myself to just like put out stuff that I think is good and like what I hope like would inspire like other people or whatever. And I even make fun of like, you know, the get readies with me and like everything. Like, but I'm also a troll, but I feel like whatever like you feel is good, and like honestly, like if you just like it, I feel like it will translate better than trying to do something that you feel like everyone would like.
Yeah.
to a song that everybody likes, you know, or that's popular or whatever. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, so for me, I've now seen, because even in that one yet, there was also like sub moments within those platforms where it's like when I was starting, it was almost like before we were all on YouTube watching YouTube videos, people were using YouTube as like a technical resource on MySpace. And then same thing with like using the links for YouTube to go onto Facebook. And then like, right, and then like Twitter and like all these things were like, they were hand in hand with whatever video platform or whatever, you know. So it's almost like even though there's 3 video platforms, there's probably like 5 to 7 social media platforms that were associated to video and dance over these years, and they've come and gone and come and gone. And so the thing that honestly often that I end up saying to brands and things is that like, my hopes for dancers is to not focus on the specific platform at all, because essentially the platform is basically irrelevant. Like there's always gonna be a platform. It's just like, am I shooting this video vertical? Am I shooting this video horizontal? Is this video a square? Do people do this now or whatever? And sometimes doing that, but then also looking directly at that and saying like, I don't care about this at all. I'm not going to do that format at all. And it can kind of spark a wave or, you know, create a new trend that isn't trending, but it's trending within the dance community, you know? So when people talk about the era of concept videos and things, what I like to remind people, because they feel discouraged maybe, I've had this talk with Jules many times, is people feel discouraged that maybe there's not an audience for it or whatever. The thing is that when we were making this wave of concept videos, it was maybe only about, I don't even know, 10 choreographers, 15 choreographers. It's not a whole lot of people that made really a global impact on how people perceived dance, how they received dance, and what they might want to do with dance and influence them. It's not that many people. So the only difference is that it was a small group of people that essentially agreed without speaking on what a dance video looked like, right? Is like, okay, a dance video at that time, a dance video is like really cool location, cool outfit, looks like a music video, but it's just dance, there's no artist. Little bit of story intro, main choreo part, little bit of outro, credits. Like that was the formula, and we all agreed upon it without having any conversation. We were perpetuating a format in which people could receive dance. So my hopes for the future is that regardless of the platform, instead of looking for trends that are popular to hop onto, more so dancers taking the time to make something internally in the dance community that we basically agree upon is a good reflection of dance. You know, what does a dance video look like? If I am putting out 100 videos of a year, do you guys think that people are really going to care about video number 55 or video number 75? Probably not, honestly. They might, but sometimes it comes around to being more specific and intentional with what you're creating and what you're putting out, and not just thinking, it's whatever, it'll do whatever if I just throw it out there. I'm victim of this too, because I still love the game of dance. I still love the craft. I want to be known as relevant. I want people to see my skill set, that I'm still getting better and that I'm working really hard. But sometimes it takes a little bit of patience to reel in and build up the value of what we have in dance. If we're just willing to give away all of our skill set, all of our image, our likeness, all of that away for free on the internet 365 days a year, when a job comes around and they lowball you or give you a very insulting number of a rate, you don't have much to say back to them because you already give it all away for free every day of the year. So not that you can't give away your art for free, but maybe having more intention behind some of those things that you put out there creates essentially the perception of value. And so my hope in general is that dancers can kind of start to unify on what does a dance video look like? How do we want to put ourselves out there? How do we want to be perceived? Not how can we get more views to hopefully maybe get an opportunity. We can make the opportunity by being great, basically. Yeah.
Anybody else got a question? Hi, one sec.
Hi, thank you for the exchange very much. I wanted to know, Yan, you said when you started, you had that kind of a goal, you know, inspired also by the industry more,
Sure.
and then that new era kind of came under your feet without you noticing it.
Yeah.
And I guess at some point, you also got caught in the momentum because I
Sure.
believe a lot of things happened.
Sure.
Do you feel like you have achieved still, because I don't know all your work.
Sure, yeah.
Do you still, you still achieved what was your first goal, like at the starting point?
Sure.
And if yes or no, like, did you make peace with it?
That's a really good question, honestly. Honestly, that's a great question. Super thoughtful, because I actually, to be honest, battle with this basically every day of my life. In a sense, my original goals, I haven't achieved necessarily. I can't necessarily say that. I can say that the specific goals I haven't achieved, but my broader, larger goal was something my mom instilled in me when I was really young. And she said very simply that, like, you know, Ian, probably the best thing you can do in your life, or hope to do in your life, is find something that you love to do and get paid to do it, right? And I was super, super privileged to check that box at a really young age. So I had that feeling of confidence under my belt, knowing that, like, I actually am achieving my goal, but I have struggled with the fact that it doesn't look like what I originally thought and hoped it would look like. So I've had to, in the last 3 to 5 years, really step behind myself and zoom out of my life and really see that although I haven't achieved some of the things that were typical of a dancer or choreographer to want to achieve from my generation, I definitely carved and paved a path from the lack of, I guess, recognition or validation in those spaces. So every time that I wasn't met with what I was hoping for, it forced me to be creative and hope that whatever other path I'm making, maybe other people might get something out of it. And it has always kind of felt like a little bit of an underdog story. So this chapter of my life is a little bit strange to actually be in this room and actually feel this ideology that I'm even talking to you guys right now, that you guys care. I got Jules here, I got Maniette here, I got Ian here. Like, this goes back a long time. And to have seen that this has happened is a little bit of a shocker, and I have to actually solidify the reality of those experiences and know that the things that I didn't achieve, that I hope to, these moments, these smaller moments in my life, the compilation of all those moments have formed a completely different path that I couldn't have ever imagined. And some of the goals that I've reached, they come in short order because I'm realizing that they're a goal as they're happening, you know, and I'm realizing, oh, this is something that I don't know anybody who's doing this. For example, me and Brian right now, we have a 1 year, we're on our second year of 1 year contracts with Sony Electronics, to where we're brand ambassadors. We can't even wear other headphone products and stuff like that. And essentially, this is something that maybe in 2011 would have been a dream come true that we couldn't have even imagined. Like we really were modeling ourselves after artists we look up to. A Drake, you see, you know, athletes or stuff. We wanted to be like them, and so we emulated their tactics of how they released their songs, how they released, you know, campaigns or whatever. And we always felt like we were the homemade, busted, broke down version of that, but we wanted to emulate greatness. And to see that it basically took 10 years for that to actually impact corporate bigger companies to the point where they're even willing to spend that money on a dancer and not an artist, and maybe the choreographer choreographs the campaign and that's it. It's a big deal, and it's such a big deal that it's another case where I feel like while it's new and exciting for me and Brian, it may be something very shortly that instead of trying to be a choreographer who's doing a big artist on tour, or even being a traveling choreographer, maybe the next gen of kids want to get sponsorship deals and they want to be signed or whatever, have big contracts. That wasn't even a thought, you know? And now me and Brian have been able to do, other choreographers and dancers have too. But the fact that it's as big of a company as Sony, and that we're not just doing one-off brand deals, which I've done in the past. Hey, here's this one campaign here. We're on an actual contract that doesn't have to always even do with, here's my video. It's just a broader contract. And that's just something that is amazing for dancers, because you get to basically be yourself, you know, and align yourself with companies that have money to be able to fund that dream and fund that lifestyle. And yeah, that's something I couldn't have basically imagined before. So I hope that that continues to change and shift, that, okay, now you could be a traveling choreographer and travel the world and teach, and that could be a whole, you know, job, basically. That maybe that's the next gen. Maybe people are getting sponsorships. Maybe a year from now, Julian locks a sponsorship in. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it will happen because we can feel it. We can feel the momentum. You know, I had none of these conversations before, and now I have this deal with Sony, and I'm trying to work with other companies to see, hey, maybe can I run a program for your company? Can I select people to make a collective for your company and like do something special with? And so these are the things that it takes time, but you do eventually come to terms with it, you know, the shift. So, yeah, bro. Good question.
Yeah, let's hear it. And then after this question, I'm gonna flip the switch. Oh my God, this is not good. You're gonna ask them a question.
Oh, cool.
So after this question, you ask the cameras the question.
Yo.
So I wanted to ask, it's two questions in one, but let's just go. Let's go. Firstly, you started videography, like I would say directing, and that's a completely different side to dancing. And I think a lot of people don't really go there. And I know that even Julian as well, I've watched your videos, a lot of your videos. And I think like you guys started doing this, which is completely off of, I would say, dancing. And a lot of dancers do end up to be directing what they actually should be choreographing, and maybe even doing the creative work and styling or whatever. So it's a bigger world, I would say, rather than just putting the movement on the person. And secondly, I would say, just because this is for you, for both of you. Secondly, I would just say you had a period where you weren't feeling as like maybe you were like good enough, and you started freestyling a lot and just learning new skill level. Like I remember popping, light feet and stuff like that. So how did that help you mentally, and just for you, how did that help you feel better maybe afterwards?
You want to answer the film question first?
Well, I think like, you know, we both love movies, first off, like, and there's so many like directors we look up to, Scorsese, Tarantino, like the list goes on. But I think to implement two things we love into like one thing is just like what makes us happy. Like with music, film, movement, all in one is just like a crazy thing. And I think like once I started doing that more and just like looking at like just even like the videos you make, like and like it's kind of crazy because like we're artists and like that's like a piece of our life at the moment, you know, and it's crazy to look back at that. But it's also cool that like since we are fans of like film, that we could actually not only just like make a short film, but also use our talent and use our taste to just create like an image and everything. I'm working on a short film this year that I started in February about the dance industry. It's gonna take some time and some money, but since I love the art, it's worth it, you know?
Yeah, so for me, it's it kind of came out of default in the sense that when I like came up in the dance industry, so many people are such great dancers, bro. You know, like people are so talented at this craft, and I always found myself to be much more of a student and nerd of dance than necessarily a natural gift or a natural talent. I think I have an inclination for music and visual arts in general, but I also I feel that I found my voice through the pen of dance, but I also feel like that was circumstantial to the time, my exact experience of how I found dance and stuff, but I also love so many different arts. I could see a world where I could just be a graphic designer, or I could just be like in fashion, or like I just nerd out about craft in general. So I think I had a natural inclination to a lot of the elements of dance. Like I was saying, musicality, visual imagery in general. But I never felt that I was as impressive of a naturally gifted dancer as some people that you see. You know, when you see a dancer and you just feel like, I could watch this person move for hours. I don't care if they're doing a two-step. I don't care if they're just snapping their finger. They're a gift, you know? And I felt that I struggled to make people feel that way at the drop of a hat or on a dime, because I struggled to keep my skill set sharp enough in the way that you might have to train your physicality, or, you know, because there's a needle on dance, right, which is the artistic and kind of more cerebral side, and then there's also the physicality side, which makes it a really interesting art form, right? Because like my parents are both artists, but my dad, he's like a pen and ink and oil painter, and you know, he could be 80, actually getting better and better and better at his craft and barely be moving, right? And for us, it's like, even though my mental skill set and creativity is getting better, I'm having to work harder to keep my body in alignment, right, with my brain. So I always felt like I want to make something that has a finished border on it, that, like what Jules was saying, it's an art piece and it can just be done, you know? And I don't have to perform this live 20 nights in a row or whatever, right? I would be cooked performing some of these pieces I try to shoot or whatever, you know? So I really started to narrow in on like, how can I make a final product that is the whole picture of what I see in my brain when I hear this song? And how can I make myself and frame myself so that people can see the best of me? Because maybe I don't look that great from this angle or on this day, right? But if I could pull it together and work for a month, 2 months on this one visual, and I put my all into it, and I cashed in all my favors with all my friends, maybe I'll have something that I'm really proud of that I can look back at, and maybe I might be like, oh, this choreo was ass over here or whatever. But at least in general, I'm like, hey, I took the time to do it. You know, I took the time and it's finished, and that's a part of me I can't change. So that was a lot of times my like real allure into doing that, because it gave me relief to almost have receipts for myself. You know, it's hard as you continue on in a craft to keep validating yourself, because we all have a little bit of imposter syndrome in dance, right? Because we respect the craft. You respect people who are great, right? And when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, sometimes that question gets really loud of like, am I great today? Am I like, you know? And so having those receipts of your art piece that you took the time for, it's a nice thing to be able to lean on in those moments where you feel like, dang, I don't know if I still have this anymore, or if I can keep going with this relationship with dance. So that's like a big reason on the film for me. But to speak to your other question on like when I kind of started to move back into like freestyle and things like that, that taps into my larger love of dance, period. Because dance genuinely and specifically kind of saved me as a person. People maybe wouldn't know it now because I've had to step into the lifestyle that I have, but I'm actually generally a really shy person from my upbringing until now. And so I actually really struggled with like getting bullied a lot as a kid, all the way until I was in high school, and I started getting good at dance, and then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh. And even then, it was still like something kind of like I was bullied for, basically. And dance just was a place where I really felt safe, and I really felt accepted, and I felt a part of something, and that there was never anything wrong to not, when you don't know something, you know, it's a place where you can always learn. And so I think I got to a point in dance, probably when maybe 6-7 years ago, where I felt like I had made an impact in dance, but I was kind of veering off into this rabbit hole of dance with wordplay and concepts and videos and things like that. And I started to get so in my head and so specific about what I was creating that it was actually like harming my overall relationship with dance, you know? And I had to kind of step back and really just humble myself to go, why am I not feeling good about this? Why is this stressing me out when this was like my safe space and this is where I felt really good? So I started to look at dance as a whole again and be like, man, this craft is essentially endless. Like, you can study this craft forever. You know, there's cultures and places in the world that have all different types of dance, and I could be 80 years old and still only know probably half the dance styles. And even at that, maybe moderately, you know, it probably takes 10 to 20 years to really master a style, those 10,000 hours that you need to put in. And so I just realized, man, dance is really my playground. Dance is my safe space. Every time I enter back to a place in dance where I don't know shit and I'm humbled, that means I get to play again and I get to grow and restart my journey in dance the same way I felt when I was 10 years old and there was nothing but growth ahead of me and opportunity and things like that. So I just hit that point in dance where I needed to work on my relationship with dance. So sometimes people lean onto dance a lot as though it doesn't bend or move or break. And dance is malleable, just like we are as people. So it's kind of like a relationship. And sometimes people don't take the time to think about that dance and them is a relationship. And so it's going to have moments where it feels really high, and it's also going to have moments where it feels really low. But people often want to basically cut off the low parts and just keep the high parts. And that's just not how it works, you know, because it doesn't work that way in a relationship. You can't possibly have a deep and connected relationship with somebody if you don't go through some hard times with them and work through it and see it out on the other end. And so around that time when I started studying again back in popping, starting to study light feet for the first time, I realized that there was just a whole world in front of me altogether in dance that I could explore endlessly, and it changed my whole life all over again. And I'm still here to keep trying new styles. A month and a half ago, I was sessioning with Lil Buck, learning some Memphis jukin for 3 hours straight, just the two of us. You know, I have plans to maybe like go back to Chicago, spend a couple months, maybe just deep dive into Chicago footwork for a little second, and just like continue my education. Our teacher, Bop and Pete, he said to me, I quote him all the time on this, is that he said something like that a lot of dancers, their focus is to say what they've done for dance very often, because it's like an egotistical thing. But he has this saying where he says, you know, that you as an individual didn't do anything for dance, and dance did everything for you. And I find that to be so true, because I never asked anything of dance, and in return, every single minute, every single moment that I've invested in the dance, it's given back to me the opportunity to see the world, to make all of my friends, all of my mentors, all of my students put food in my stomach, put a roof over my head, and do all of these things. And it's been generous to me in that way. And I feel that responsibility to invest back in every single moment I can, because it's a giving relationship for sure. So thanks, bro. Thanks for the question.
I think what we can take away from today's session is that you are in control of what you can do, and don't let anything stop you. So make sure you put everything you've got into your passion and your craft. Keep working hard, keep studying, remain a student, but also create your own pathway, if you will. Yes? We good? Boys, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining us on this booth session. Have a beautiful day. Peace.
Wait, take a pic of us.